Okay, welcome and good morning. We are so excited. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. We are so excited to welcome you to the Flexibility and Autonomy webinar, hosted by Best Place for Working Parents, alongside our partners with Associated Industries of Massachusetts and PNC. I'm thrilled to pass the mic to Karen Wallace with Associated Industries of Massachusetts to provide a welcome.
Thanks so much, Sadie. And I'm really thrilled to have everybody on this call. We're happy to welcome all of you to this Flexibility on Autonomy in the Workplace webinar. I think we've got some great information for you. I'm Karen Wallace, as Sadie said. I'm EVP of Economic Inclusion at Associated Industries of Massachusetts. For those of you who don't know AIM, we are the largest business trade association in the Commonwealth, serving 3,400 members across 150 industries, businesses, and all sizes and stages. So again, thank you for joining us. Thanks to PNC, to Sadie, and Best Place for Working Parents, and really thank you to all of our esteemed panelists. Sadie, let me just turn it back over to you to get going. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Karen. So for those of you who are less familiar with Best Place for Working Parents, we are a national network of businesses and regions across the country, proving family-friendly is business-friendly through the top 10 research-backed strategies proven to not only support working parents, but businesses' bottom line. Today, our footprint is 23 distinct regions across 13 states with more than 1,500 companies that have earned the Best Place for Working Parents designation. And we're really thrilled that more than 50% of the network are small and micro-sized businesses. So as we begin today, it's important to just take a step back and think about why Best Place for Working Parents. Today, the workforce is much different than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. And today's workforce represents 75% of today's workforce are caregivers. That means they're caring for their own children, maybe aging loved ones, even maybe adult dependents. And additionally, 2/3 of all children under the age of 6 have all parents in the workforce. So either they're single or dual parents are participating in the workforce, on top of what we know, which is that 83% of millennials would leave one job for another with more family-friendly benefits, and 73% of highly credentialed women who have left the workforce would stay should they have access to more flexibility alone. So Best Place for Working Parents was built on just those top 10 research-backed strategies that are proven to not only support working parents, but businesses' bottom line. And today we're going to be focused on 3 of these. Looking at flexibility, we'll be talking about flexible hours and remote work, as well as paid time off. Diving just for a moment into the research, when it comes to flexibility, we know that 66% of women who have access to flexibility at their workplace today say they plan to stay at their jobs for more than 3 years, compared to just 19% of women who have no flexibility. Thinking about remote work, employees with remote benefits are 75% more likely to be often or always engaged, and as well as 30% less likely to look for another job in the next year. So thinking about retention metrics, for those who are able to offer flexibility or remote work options, we know this is really sticky for your employee base. And then very briefly, just looking at parental leave, we know that employers who provide paid family leave report that they have been able to maintain or increase employee productivity, profitability, turnover, and employee morale. Diving into our own research that we did 2 years ago through our Making the Connection report, we were able to show that employers who offer flexibility have employees who rate them 123 times more a supportive workforce, as well as those offering remote work have staff that are 2 times more motivated and 2 times healthier. Then looking at the impact of remote work and paid time off on employees themselves, those employees rate having increased personal relationship satisfaction. I'm now excited to pass the mic to Leslie Ford. Leslie is the CEO and founder of Mom's Hierarchy of Needs and soon to be published author. With over 20 years in senior leadership and a decade focused on media and technology in childcare, elder care, mental health and education, Leslie is a sought-after speaker and consultant. She advises organizations like HubSpot, Merck, Scholastic, and the Bar Foundation. Her business provides evidence-based tools to help retain working parents and caregivers in the workforce. And what's really exciting is today, Leslie's going to share about her research she's been conducting since March of 2020, which includes over 3,700 parents who participated in the longest running research study of its kind, focusing on the pandemic's ongoing impact on work care and wellness. So Leslie, welcome. We're excited to hear a bit from you about some of the challenges and most excited to hear about the solutions employers are putting in place. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here, and this is my favorite topic because I think there's so many opportunities to support parents in the workplace and really transform their relationship to work and employer outcomes. Now, this is a little snapshot from the study, as Sadie had mentioned. We've now had close to 4,000 parents that have participated over the course of the study. And what's interesting is that during the different stages of the pandemic, people had different relationships to work, their roles as parents, their roles as caregivers for elders or other adults, and their roles as self-caregivers. What you'll see here, and I think what's probably the most important about this slide, is that everyone wants to be excellent at everything. So if people feel like they can't be a great parent to their children, or if they can't be a great child to their aging parents, or if they're not doing well as partners or spouses, it starts to really erode their self-confidence, their self-trust, and sense of self-efficacy, and nobody wins. What we've seen time and again throughout this study is that people will let go of self-care first. So those preventative behaviors that really help support mental, physical, and emotional health. You know, we're like swimmers, right? We're trying to shave a few seconds off of our time each day. And that restorative behavior is often what's the first to go. We can go to the next slide. In the study, I think over the course, it's been pretty consistent that parents, and in this study, it's overwhelmingly women who've participated in the more recent waves, are just desperate for more time to themselves, often to engage in those self-care activities that are not only beneficial to their health and well-being, but to their clarity, focus, and attention at work. Although they are very much interested in more time and self-care, you know, over close to a third are also interested in career growth and advancement. And as the economy has shifted and as people have felt more concern in some cases about their finances and the macro climate, I see increasingly people are very eager to find ways to combine their caregiving responsibilities with professional advancement. Next slide, please. And I think what's perhaps the most powerful for employers and leaders when I speak with managers, it's not always the big things, right? There's a lot of little interventions that really work in people's personal lives, but also in people's professional lives. So as you'll see from some of the anonymous quotes here, providing people with flexibility, helping them just feel seen for the work that they're doing, having an expanded view of what it means to support their role and their lives outside of work goes a long way toward making people feel engaged and loyal to their employers. Next slide, please. This is great. We can go one past this. So really, what can employers do? Again, there's a lot employers can do, and it doesn't have to be expensive to make people feel really well supported. Now, I realize that 4-day work weeks, they don't work for every role or necessarily in every industry, but the data, if you look at the various places where it's been experimented with, especially in larger data sets, the stats are off the charts. It really does help people feel like they can make their work and lives work So if you have the types of roles and responsibilities in your organization where you can experiment and pilot with that model, whether it's fully at 80% with 80% comp or a flip between 100% and 80%, it's well worth experimenting with. I think also expectations are huge. I think what happens with a lot of leaders as in the organizations that I work with and what I hear from parents in the study, people tend to set it and forget it, right? They'll put together those KPIs or objectives for your performance review at a certain point in the year. And then over the course of the year, when conditions change, they won't revisit it. But I see parents are like desperate for support. They're saying, I'm being expected to deliver against the same goals when half of my staff has been cut, or I'm down to a third of my budget, or we have a huge new competitor in our market. And none of those conditions are reflected in the KPIs or key performance indicators. So leaders, what's happening is that for a lot of parents, especially if they are in desirable industries, desirable roles, and as I shared in the beginning, everyone wants to be excellent at everything. A lot of people just won't have that hard conversation with their manager. They will choose to leave, go someplace else, and feel like they can reestablish or set new, healthier boundaries in a different environment. So encourage leaders to have those frequent touch points about whether goals should change or can change. The other piece is really, encouraging creativity and flexibility as the link to productivity, giving people dedicated space for what Cal Newport would describe as deep work, meeting free time, time when meetings start and end times are huge. If you invite people to a regular meeting and it's always at 8 in the morning or 8:30 in the morning, a lot of parents are dealing with drop off and the chaos of a morning commute on top of that is difficult. So really look for windows to protect people's space outside of work, anticipate difficulties that parents and caregivers might have, and allow people some sanctioned deep work time. I think the other thing is surveillance and monitoring. I think many employers are very well intentioned in wanting to optimize productivity and efficiency. But when people feel like they can't step away from their keyboards, or as I've seen in the study, people are terrified of not having their little green light on, it creates a level of mistrust and disconnection between workers and their employers. So, trust people to do their work. Performance is, and look at performance measures versus presence. A lot of work, especially post-industrial work, really was about hours. And so we are encouraged to be present, even when it's not necessarily what matters for that particular role. So look at other measures of performance aside from on time to help recognize people's incredible contributions. And then the last one is really model that self-care. If you're having if you need to take a mental health day, tell your team you're taking a mental health day. Encourage managers to let people know if they're leaving early to pick up their kids, or if they have to drop everything because an aging parent needs support in another city and they are going to take some time off. Have those conversations. It normalizes it for everyone else. Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. And before you go, there was a question. Can you share the demographics of the study? Was it 100% women? What was the breakdown there?
It's 97% women. So
Okay.
it is overwhelmingly mothers. Although I will share when I run an adapted version of the study inside of workplaces, it's almost gender neutral. And the results on the workplace side for the private studies are very similar.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'm really excited. So now we're going to shift and hear from two business leaders who are not only talking about flexibility and autonomy, but actively building it into their company cultures in ways that support their working parents and their teams to deliver incredible results. With us today are two incredible leaders. Lucia Wood is Vice President of People at SKG, a small business in Austin, Texas. And Michelle Corton Brown is Chief Business Inclusion and Belonging Officer at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts, which would be a large size business. Together, they'll be sharing what flexibility looks like in their organizations, how it's helping drive retention and engagement, and a culture of trust that keeps top talent thriving. So a little bit about our two panelists. Michelle is the Chief Business and Inclusion Belonging Officer at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts, where she leads their inclusion initiatives, fostering an environment where belonging is cornerstone. She chairs the organization's Business Inclusion and Belonging Council, charged with governance of their 5C operating model and their National Committee for Quality Assurance Accreditation. She also provides oversight to the 10 employee resource groups with 1,000 engaged employees and departmental business inclusion councils. Michelle joined Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts in 2020 as VP of Business Development and Managing Director of Zafra Investments, Blue Cross Blue Shield Massachusetts' $300 million strategic investment fund. Previously, she held positions at Bank of America and Travelers Insurance Companies as Foundation President and SVP of Charitable Asset Management. Lucia is the Executive HR Leader at SKG, where she oversees benefits administration, payroll, and workplace policies, ensuring seamless integration of these functions to support both business operations and employee well-being. With a diverse background in managerial and leadership roles, Lucia brings a strong sense of ownership to every initiative she undertakes. So welcome, Michelle and Lucia. Thrilled to have you all today. Additionally, to our attendees, as you dive in, feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A. We also think chat may have been turned back on, so feel free to give that a shot. And if not, pardon our technical difficulties, but we can definitely see everything that is being placed within the Q&A. So this morning, Lucia, or this afternoon for some of us, Lucia, let's start with you. Can you walk us through how SKG introduced or evolved its flexible work and autonomy policy, and how that's impacted employee experience and business outcomes? Lucia, we're going to invite you to come off mute and start over.
Oh, no, that's me. Always goofing up. Super excited to be here today, everybody, to talk about something I'm extremely passionate about. SKG is a business that provides workspace solutions to our clients. And like Sadie said, we are a small business and we employ many individuals with young families. We are a woman-owned business and we really do lead with empathy and people-first values. So long before the pandemic, we embraced a flexible work environment as a way to support our working parents and actually every employee in our company. So when COVID hit, we expanded these policies significantly. We knew we were faced with something unprecedented, and we had very different scenarios. You know, kids' school closed and kids without daycare. We had many employees where one of the work parents had lost their job. So we had to act fast. So, you know, meetings, created protocols that what we could offer. We had to do a cost analysis to say, what can we afford to give these people to help the business? Because we wanted people to continue working. So, you know, we had employees that were already contributing to dependent care accounts, not just for kids, but also for aging parents. So we decided that we wanted to contribute to those accounts. We decided that we decided to just take over the child care cost reimbursement. We said, guys, if you can find somebody that can care for your kids, even though you're working from home, because we had sent everybody home. He said, if you can find somebody to take care of your kids, we want to reimburse you for that cost. So, but we also contributed funds to those families where employment was affected in the household due to the pandemic. So, you know, their salaries had been cut in half. And also offered, that's when we started to offer actually mental health services free of charge to all of our employees, including the family members. So what happened after the pandemic? We chose to sustain and strengthen all of these accommodations. We saw an impact firsthand of how positive this had been to our employees. We saw that employees became extremely loyal to us. So even today, we continue to offer incentives like daycare cost reimbursement. We have given employees the option to bring their children to the office when needed. Um, we have some employees that even bring their aging parents to the office once in a while. And we offer paid internship opportunities for employees, children of high school age. All these benefits really reflect our belief that, honestly, work and life are not separate, they're integrated. This culture of trust and support to our employees has given us as a company a competitive advantage. We have an 86% retention rate at SKG, which is fairly high. We have high performers and loyal employees. And within our industry, which is the systems furniture industry, we have a very positive brand reputation. We have people that actually want to work for us. So this has, all of this experience has helped us build a workplace where people and their families can thrive.
Thanks, Lucia. And real quick, how many employees does SKG have?
We have approximately 70.
Okay, and would you define your line of business? I know you said furniture. I believe you all help with interior design solutions for
Yes.
businesses. Is that correct?
That is correct. We offer workspace solutions. So you guys can imagine during COVID and all of us having to go home and everybody went home, our business suffered tremendously because what we do is we design workspaces, offices. So all of these decisions that were made during COVID and we decided to continue doing, we had to be very careful about our costs. We had to be very careful about what we were going to offer, but we decided to just say, yes, let's support our employees. Let's keep going. And we did.
I love that. Well, thanks, Lucia. Michelle, can you tell us a little bit about the journey at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts? What did it take to get leadership buy-in for your flexible strategies, and how did you bring them to life on the ground?
Thanks for the question, Sadie, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to have this chat today. Just for context, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts is a single state Blue. We are supporting about 3 million members. We're the largest health plan in the state of Massachusetts. We're also a large employer. We employ about 4,200 employees. And our commitment to our employees is inextricably tied to our desire to support the health outcomes of our members. And so if we have healthy, thriving employees, we believe they're going to be empowered to provide support to our 3 million members. So before COVID, we had already embraced flexibility. About 30% of our employees were working in a hybrid fashion or fully remote before COVID. During COVID, of course, 100% of us were remote. And on the return to work, we're back 2 days a week on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but 70% of our employees opted to participate in a hybrid model. So they're at least 3 days at home, many of them 100% remote. And what we found was that our productivity did not flag as a result of having that in place. Our managers have been supported with a number of resources that help them navigate our need to provide flexibility. So, for example, we've piloted and experimented with no meeting Fridays as an opportunity for people to really have that opportunity, as Leslie talked about, to think and to do the work as opposed to being in the work in meetings. We provide 8 days of wellness support, days off for our employees, and they're clearly articulated in our human resource program as wellness days, which people take advantage of. And we've also offered a broad range of childcare services through our employee assistance program. All of those things really geared to allowing employees to have that work-family balance that we're looking for, and to be empowered in a space that they can then deliver those supports to our members.
Great, thank you. And quick question, when you talk about your wellness days, are those days specifically scheduled as wellness days, or do they act more
Yes.
ad hoc that employees can take?
Employees have the option to take those days and do with them what they'd like. So if people need to take a day off and manage with their kids, they can certainly do that. There are a range of things that they can do on those days off.
And really quickly, we'll take one from the open questions. How do you all at Blue Cross Blue Shield stick to no meeting Fridays? Someone says they shared they've tried that, and it wasn't as easy as they predicted.
It is never as easy as what one would predict for sure, but I think the notion behind it is that we're giving people permission to block time on their calendar so that they can do the work they need to do. So the manifestation of that may not look literally like you have no meetings on Fridays, but there is a proclivity to, can we plan those meetings on Mondays through Thursdays?
Okay, great. Thank you. And then another question is, the wellness days are in addition to other paid time off plans, I believe.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Great. So Lucia, back to you. I've heard you say that your first instinct when an employee asks for help is to say yes, which I find really powerful. How have you nurtured a culture of trust and transparency? And what practices do you have that keep accountability strong while still remaining people-centered?
Sure. We truly believe that trusting people is the right thing to do, first of all. And this takes me back to my early days. I had a child at a very early age, and I'm going to age myself here. It was more than 40 years ago. And in those days, I lived in a country where I received zero support as a working parent. I needed to work. And it was a country where women were expected to stay home and raise their children. So if you were working, it was frowned upon by society. But I wanted a career. I wanted a profession, like Leslie mentioned. That's important for people's self-worth. And I wanted that for myself. So I remember at a very early age that I promised myself that if I ever had the chance to hold a role in a company where I could be an advocate for working parents, I would do that. And so here I am. Fast forward. I am working in a place where I can advocate for working parents, and I have a chance to be able to have a voice in the company where I work. So I am I feel very strongly about transparency and psychological safety. And when I say that nobody in our company feels frowned upon or feels guilty when they leave early for a kid's baseball game. They don't feel, guilty for being off one day to chaperone their children in a field trip or be the coach of the kids' soccer game. Actually, we have a Teams channel that's called Water Cooler Chat. And it started during COVID, and we kept it because we wanted to mimic when people stand around the water cooler and chat. And so we encourage our employees to post pictures of them with their kids during work hours, being at that baseball game, being on that field trip, being home caring for their children. We have nurtured this culture of trust by being clear about expectations. We are very clear with our leaders, and we mentor and we coach them to be transparent in their communications with their team members by having those weekly touch points, by having that open door dialogue. Accountability is important. At SKG, we embrace it. We make that space for flexibility, understanding that, life happens in people's life. And we need to trust them and not have them feel controlled. So, Sadie, yes, we do say yes to helping. We say yes to flexibility. We say yes to trust, but we also say yes to responsibility. And that balance is what keeps our people engaged and our business thriving.
I love that. Saying yes to moments that matter and celebrating as a team. I'll say on a personal note, my 3-year-old had her dance recital at a very convenient time, 2 p.m. in the middle of the day yesterday. And I put it on my calendar about a month in advance to make sure I had no complications. But what I really loved is our co-founder, Sarah Reddington, reached out, ahead of time and said, make sure and send me the pics. I want to see the dance recital. And, it's really that value of being invested in the employee as a whole person that I think really builds loyalty back to the team. So, Michelle, thinking about how do we start to measure some of this? How does Blue Cross Blue Shield track the impact of flexibility and autonomy? And what data points do you have that show it's not just a nice to have, but actually a smart investment when it comes to productivity, engagement, and retention?
So as you imagine, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts, like many companies, have dashboards or scorecards around performance. And some of that data that's collected is qualitative and some of it's quantitative. So on a quarterly basis, we participate in pulse studies that allow us to ask questions of our employees about how they feel. So it's not just a matter of like, I feel good about the moves we're making, but that our employees are saying that these are programs, actions, activities, practices that are important in their lives. And so that's one point of validation. You mentioned earlier in my introduction about our framework for our inclusion and belonging work. We have a 5C framework that includes career, culture, community, commerce, and care. And each of those 5Cs has a pillar lead, an executive of the organization, who reports out on a regular basis, but certainly at the end of the year, on progress in all of those dimensions. And so in the culture dimension, we are interested in meeting our employees as if they're the only ones, as if we're providing them the benefits that they need. So we're in a constant space of surveying employees to understand where they have needs and either buying up products and services that support those needs or curating supports that provide those needs. So whether it's childcare services or elder care services, polling our employees, we discovered that mental health and stress was something that we needed to dial into. So we've actually got a program involving our in-house doctors who hold mental health sessions once a month. Any employee can sign up and get some support around how to navigate. We have additional supports around things like menopause support. We invest in a program or a company called Maven that provides menopause and women's health solutions. And we actually tapped into our employee resource group, our women's inclusive network, to be part of an experiential panel to test out the efficacy of that product that we were then offering to customers. So again, imbibing our own solutions and getting good data about the value of those before we offer them out to our membership base, just as a couple of quick examples.
That's great, Michelle. And one of the questions that Mary had asked was, how do you balance benefits between working parents and employees? And I think you did a great job illustrating that. I also think when we're talking about these top 10 policies, when we're talking about policies in general that support working parents, in general, they're policies that support all families and all parents and all individuals in the workforce. When we think about the ability to have some flexibility and autonomy to be able to prioritize what and who is most important to you and be there for their moments that matter, I think is really powerful and really speaks to everyone. Lucy, yes, Michelle?
I was just going to add, I think it's really important, say, that you pull out the issue of intersectionality. So, we may be working parents, but we may also be daughters and sons who are taking care of elders, and where does that sit in the conversation? We have non-traditional families that LGBTQ. We have to find space for everyone. And there isn't a one size that fits all dimension. We have to have solutions that people can pick and choose that meet their own individual's family's needs.
Absolutely. One policy I heard of recently is a company that offers transition days for employees who may be transitioning an elderly family member into long-term care or a new residential setting. And they also provide that, should something change and they need to transfer them out of that care. So I thought that was neat. I've also heard of companies offering college move-in days. So thinking about, your young adults and entering that next journey. Lucia, how is SKG leveraging data to shape or refine your policies, and how do you know they're working?
We do track a range of, we do have a range of indicators to understand whether our approach is working or not. As Michelle mentioned, we do employee pulse surveys once a quarter. Productivity metrics, are employees meeting deadlines? Are they delivering high quality work? And we do have client satisfaction scores. We send scorecards to our clients to make sure that we're on top of our game as to customer service. We also perform annual stay interviews, and I can't say enough about this. I do these myself. I sit individually. I mean, we are 70 employees, so I do sit individually with each one of our employees, and we want to know why employees stay. We want to know what we're doing right, and if there's anything out there that we could improve. So one of the examples and takeaways from these stay interviews is that we get consistent positive feedback as to work-life balance and leadership trust. Our employees are happy in our company. They refer people when we have openings, and they do feel supported and are proud to bring others into our culture. We maintain strong relationships with our clients to make sure that, we're consistently delivering high quality work. And we're not afraid to adjust when the data tells us something's not working. And I remember for a while there, we did allow our employees to have set work from home days. And we're an industry that really is an industry, we're a work from work industry. Like when our clients walk our showrooms where we work, to be able to support our industry, we do have to have employees working in the space. So we decided we'd let our employees choose their work from home days. And I think it was 2 or 3 days a week. And we did see that creativity and collaboration did suffer. It was falling through the cracks. So all of a sudden we say, the data is showing that having set work from home days doesn't allow our design team members to meet with our sellers, to show drawings or different plans for different workspaces. So we just said, hey, we're going to be flexible. You can work from home whenever you want. If the kids are sick, if the kids are out of school, if you can't bring them to work from home. If you needs to be heads down, work from home, but no more set days. So what I'm saying is that we do track that. So we are making strategic decisions that drive both the culture and performance. Another thing we do is we empower our managers to apply the policies we have in ways that meet individual needs. There's no cookie cutter process here. And we also firmly tell our leaders that all these accommodations and all these perks that we offer our employees, they're treated as expectations for how we operate. Our leaders need to be in line with these company policies. And I think by saying this, I'm answering one of the questions in the chat. we've noticed that for working parents and actually for any one of our employees, these policies have been very meaningful and have had real impact in their lives. We know that some of our employees have said out loud that they stay at SKG because no other company is offering this level of support. We have a first-time mom last year that had twins and twin boys. And when she returned to work after her maternity leave, she came to me one day and she said, first of all, let me tell you, it's like vacation coming to work, because after having twin boys, she was very busy at home. But she said, my favorite day is Wednesdays, Lucia. And I said, why? And she said, well, it's massage day, because SKG does bring a massage therapist every Wednesday to give chair massages to our employees. And it's 15 minutes and it doesn't break the bank. It's not very costly. And for this employee, she said, 15 minutes to relax and to regroup just sets the tone for my day. And she was so appreciative of something so simple.
Thanks, Lucia. Michelle, you mentioned specifically a lot of the policies that you guys have put in place kind of across the continuum. I'm curious, now that we understand a bit more about the policies and their impact, can you share an example that highlights how these policies have made a meaningful difference in the life of one of your working parents?
So I can. What I would say that we have 10 employee resource groups that have now close to 1,200 of our employees engaged, individual employees engaged. What's really interesting about that is that many of them sign up for more than one employee resource group. So you can be in the working parents group, you can also be in the women's group, you can also be in the caregivers group, and still be engaging in all that programming. So just one example of a working parent engagement that I'm particularly proud of is that we have offered support around neurodiversity among our employees and for their children. And so just recently we partnered with Curry College and held a lunchtime lunch and learn around how to navigate through an educational process or through an employment engagement, if you need accommodations, how to ask for them, what is reasonably expected legally, but also what people can ask that's not, to Lucia's point, you have to navigate in such a way that you're meeting the needs of employees. So creating those opportunities for those lunch and learns, one area we're really proud of. We've also offered a program called Brightline as a benefit. And that program allows parents whose children have IEPs, individual education programs, to have this company come in and support the integration of medical information from doctors, information that needs to go to the school, and other advocates and stakeholders that support the child in a way that makes it easier for parents to access that, doing it virtually. If you think about the life of a parent, even if they're working remotely, if their child has an appointment with a psychologist, then they may have to retrieve their child from school. So they're leaving work to go pick the child up from school. Then they're driving to the doctor's office. The child may have issues transitioning from school to the doctor's office. All that's a time suck. If we could create a solution, as we did, where a parent could pick up their child, be back at home, have that engagement, that session with the psychiatrist, know that those data points are being delivered to the right folks, that's a win, both in terms of time efficiency and the quality of life for that family. Just one example.
Great, thank you. Lucia, one question that came up is how do you, sometimes you put out some great policies and senior leadership may not be on board. How do you help get them on board and align toward the approach?
Yeah, we've had examples of leaders really saying, hey, we need to get the work done. This person has, we literally have employees that have like 5 kids. And between doctor's appointments and, like I said before, we tell that manager, look, you have to have a balance here, and you need to try to customize this flexibility to this employee without suffering on performance. And I remember one time when one employee, literally 5 kids, you guys, that's a lot. She would constantly have to leave early for one kid or the other, or a child was sick at school. And the manager came to me and said, what can I do? And I said, you know what? When the kids are all in bed, is she able to catch up? And he said, well, I never asked her that. And I said, well, ask her if when kids are all in bed, if she's able to catch up on her end of day reports. This employee is a project manager. And so those end of day reports for our sellers or for our designers are really important, and for our clients. And so talked to her and she said, absolutely. I have the kids in bed all by 8:30. And if you guys give me that flexibility to prepare my end of day reports at that time of the day, I can do that. And that's how we solved it. It really is, like I said, something that we need to customize according to people's needs. And right now, every leader really does understand this and actually embrace it.
I love that. That goes back to Leslie's earlier point of really making sure we're looking at the right metrics to measure whether an employee is being successful in their role and productive to the company. Michelle, I've seen a few comments asking, how do you make sure someone's not taking advantage of this policy? So there might be a little hesitancy out there still to fully lean into flexibility. What advice do you have to offer to our attendees today?
So I think the number one opportunity for managers to assure that their business outcomes get achieved is through performance management and clear communication. And so I don't necessarily ascribe to the notion that if we allow employee flexibility, that the work won't get done. I think that we've had this amazing demonstration case with COVID, where 100% of us were at home, and many companies had some of their best years. So if we lean on the experience we had from COVID as an exemplar of what did we do, what were the moves we made during that time that were effective, and what were the moves that we made that were ineffective, I think we can solution for how flexibility can be advantageous for the employee and the employer. In our case, for example, we recognize that, working virtually is like inviting people into your home to some degree, right? You've got your camera on, there's some background happening. Not everybody is comfortable with sharing their personal life. So sometimes little things, they're big things. So for us, in the middle of COVID, we provided a stipend for employees to buy office equipment, chair, a desk, whatever they needed to feel comfortable to perform their job. In the middle of COVID, we realized that people might want to have a uniform background or screen so they didn't have to reveal their, some people live in a studio apartment. They didn't necessarily want to have their bed be part of the background. So how do we create easily for our employees a space where they felt as professional in their work, in their home, as they did in their office? So I think it's really about making the employee comfortable to the extent possible, and for employers to remember what that experience from COVID was like. How did they communicate with their employees? How did they check on the progress of projects? How did they use their one-on-ones to build rapport and community? How did they do that with their teams? Those are all skills that we can now bring into the hybrid experience.
I love that. Thank you, Michelle.
Great.
A question from the audience. Bill asks, do you find that flexibility provided to certain employees potentially generates frustration with other employees?
That's a great question. I will tell you, I've not heard a lot of energy around that.
Me neither. I think that flexibility in our company is really for everybody. We don't announce it as flexibility for working parents. We announce it as flexibility to all of our employees. So no, I haven't heard that either.
Yeah, in fact, I would say that in our case, we gave employees the option um, of whether they wanted to be fully residential, meaning working 5 days in the office, in which point they would be offered office space, remote, coming in 2 days or hybrid, coming in 2 days a week, or fully remote, and they can change that persona on the basis of life changes, and so we give people some optionality around how they dial in. If they discover I really want to be out of the house. Some people didn't like being in the house the whole time that they were in
Yeah.
COVID. So they're back in the office and that works for them. Others really figured out the hybrid work for them. And others said, remote, I can do this. I didn't think I could, but now I know that I can productively engage in my job. I can productively be part of a team and feel connected. And this works for me as well.
That really resonates with what we've heard nationally from companies, in rural areas and urban areas, which is that in general, when employers are leaning in to put smart solutions in place, even if it's not something for everyone, overall the morale increases because everyone's more reliable, everyone's more productive, and the culture is a happier culture, a more welcoming culture. So I really love that. We've just a few minutes left, and at least here in Texas, we can tell that summer is coming and upon us. The heat is here, which means that for many, their school-age children are out. The summer camp hustle is here. Lucy, I know you bring in some interns. Would love to just hear if there's another
Yeah.
strategy you all have in place or a little bit more about that. And then Michelle, how you all think about summer.
Wow, summer brings a different rhythm to life in Texas, especially for working parents. What do we do with the kids? Well, we do offer, as I mentioned before, paid internship opportunities for employees, high school aged kids. We do this, and we have kids in our marketing department. My gosh, high schoolers can literally write the best blogs and really monitor social media very well, accounting, warehouse tasks. Last year, I had a young lady help me take the whole HR department paperless. She was able to take all personnel files and index them, which is a huge help for me. In our design departments, we have kids organizing our design library and all the samples involved in that. We have kids that are very interested in IT, so they set up monitors, they connect cameras, they troubleshoot connections and keyboards. So, and they're paid internships, so this helps not only the kids feel extremely powerful getting paid at that age, but also helping with the family budgeting and the family income. We also instituted summer hours where we work half days on Fridays. So we'll give employees that chance to enjoy those mini weekends, mini long weekends with their families or just simply recharge. This is for everybody. And again, they know that if they have bids or RFPs due and they can't leave early on Friday, they just don't. And we do offer a family-friendly office environment where employees can bring their children to work. By the way, we have an amazing perk at work where we can take our dogs to work. So why not add the children to work? So we have an office full of kids and dogs, and kids love this. And we have some rules of engagement for the kids and for the dogs. But we do have touchdown spaces for kids to be able to do homework, to be able to watch movies, to play games, and even if they want to help us take our dogs for short walks. So our culture club, which is phenomenal, they organize many activities. During the summer, they really focus on family-friendly activities.
I love that. I like the rules for kids and rules for dogs.
Yes.
Michelle, what about you all?
So we offer through a number of partners the opportunity for employees to suss out pathways for their kids during the summer, whether it's summer camp or enrichment programs. So we offer that as a value add for all of our employees who have kids. We are a nonprofit and deeply community oriented. So our focus on summer programming tends to be for kids who have less opportunities. So we're a sponsor of a summer intern program where kids are placed in community-based nonprofits and work there and get paid by Blue Cross Blue Shield to be contributing in that way. This year, and I think we're discovering that many companies are struggling to have internship programs because of the hybrid structure. It doesn't necessarily allow for as many people in the office 5 days a week. So we're working with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston this year. It's the first year we've done this. But they came to us and said, we've got this pain point. We've got employers who can take kids for 3 days or 4 days or 2 days, but we have a 5-day program we need to run. So we're offering a 1-day session for a cohort of kids, 60 kids. We're going to do mock interviews. We're going to help them write their resumes. We're going to support them on their LinkedIn profiles. We're going to have a couple of day in the life panels with jobs we think young people will think are cool, like AI and data analytics, but also showing them that the health plan is broader than claims and operations. Those are great roles, but there are other roles that they might consider, and really exposing these young people to this program. What the Boys and Girls Clubs loves about this is that they had this hole they were trying to fill. And what my colleagues enjoy is that they're able to bring their expertise and their commitment to young people to life through this volunteer opportunity.
That is so cool. That's so cool. I can't wait to learn more about how it goes at the end of summer. Well, I want to thank our panelists, Michelle and Lucia and Leslie, for kickstarting us. I also do want to say out loud, we recognize that not all industries are able to offer a lot of the flexibility and autonomy that we discussed today, particularly thinking about our shift worker industries and some industries that may be able to offer it to some and not others. So maybe we have a future webinar coming, not sure, that we can really dive in. There's really cool stuff, cool things happening in the shift worker space to provide autonomy to employees in industries that typically can't. With that, I'll say our rule of thumb at Best Place for Working Parents is when you can't offer flexibility, it's really important to offer predictability. That is, can you provide the schedule 3 weeks in advance for the next 3 weeks? That allows employees to plan in advance for their caregiving needs and makes it more likely that they'll be able to show up reliably at the shifts you have set for them. I'll also give a call out. We've heard one example of a company who has kind of a mix of those who can be hybrid and those who have to be on site. So for the on-site employees, they said, we'll offer 3 days extra PTO. To allow, and when they did that, back to how does this play out for employees? Those who had flexibility said overwhelmingly, we love that policy and that makes sense to us. We are at time today at noon. We will be sharing the slides, a link to this video if you want to share with somebody who missed it. I want to say thank you so much and have a wonderful day and week. Thank you all.
Thank you.